87% of realtors get into the business and get out of the business in 2 years. That doesn't exist in our world.
We have massive visions around growing our businesses, and we are always looking to add talent to our world. We do everything in our power to ensure the people we surround ourselves with defy the odds, get into production, and build massive lives for themselves.
If you are a realtor looking to get into the business, we have a blueprint for success.
With locations all across Canada, reach out to us. Let's talk about partnership and opportunities. We are looking forward to it.
Welcome to another episode of the Sales Beast podcast. I'm super pumped to be here today with Anna, of course. We love her. We're always pumped to be with Anna. But also pumped to be here with Greg de Denus. He's someone I've known since pretty much the day I got into the business back in 2017. I know he got into the business in 2016. Greg, I've never told you this, but I feel like we're from the same generation of realtors. We both started on teams. Now we're both running teams 5 years later. And I know you're a huge success in our market and someone that I really look up to. And I know a lot of the realtors on my team look up to. So thank you for joining us, and big congratulations to you, man. You've been crushing it.
Thank you. That is a very kind intro, and I feel the exact same way about you guys too. So thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
I feel like there are very few people from our kind of generation. Quite a few people you see on stage doing amazing things from maybe a few years before us. But yeah, nice to see someone from my generation, yours truly, hitting it out of the park.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah, so can you maybe go back 5-6 years to when you got in the business, what you were doing before? I know I mentioned you started on a team. Can you maybe touch on what that experience was like?
For sure. Before I was on the team, actually, my first broker, I was at a small independent brokerage first. And prior to real estate, my wife and I owned a music school actually in East Toronto. And we were having our second kid, and staying in Toronto just wasn't tenable with the space requirements and whatnot. And so we decided to make the move to Hamilton. We sold our house, bought 2 houses when we moved to Hamilton, and we kept our music school in Toronto for the time being in a commercial space. And but my experience with the realtor in Toronto was so good. Shout out Anushki Boydenika from Remax Hallmark, complete rock star. Kind of radically changed our life through the power of real estate. And our agent in Hamilton, a woman named Bianca Marijan, she's the owner of a city brokerage, very direct, very old school realtor, been in the business since the 80s, kind of looked at us and said, you're a musician. You just got an income property, which is great. But if you keep this up, you're going to be destitute by the time you're 60. I think I'd known her for about 10 seconds when she had said that. So she encouraged me to get my real estate license and go work for her, which I did. So that was my first brokerage, was with Bianca. Had a very good first year as a single agent and decided to make the move over to KW. Was briefly a single agent there, and then was on a commercial team running their residential division. And then, made the move to Remax, where I've been since 2019, and started growing my team in 2019.
That's amazing. We have more in common than I even knew.
Okay.
I heard a couple things there. I lived in Toronto around the same time you would have. Bought 2 houses in Hamilton. Moved to Hamilton. I was a realtor. My realtor changed my life, and that's the reason I'm here, Sandy McKay. So shout out to him.
Yeah.
You mentioned a name there, Bianca Marjoram. So I did Marjan. It's been a long time. Yeah. I did my first 2 deals ever with Bianca.
Amazing. Yeah, she's great.
She's incredible. There's a lesson in it for me. When you first get in the business, and from an agent perspective, you have one person representing the buy side, another person representing the sell side. I was representing the seller, and I was fighting with Bianca. My clients will not accept that. My clients demand more money. If you're not willing to give my clients the money they want, you can walk. And it was not a good market. I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, you were the white knight realtor. Yeah,
exactly. She sat me down and she said, Mike, you know what? Realtor relationships are more important than client relationships. And I can
Yes.
tell by the way you're treating me, this is your first or one of your first deals, and you will not last a minute in this business if you continue to conduct yourself like that. And I've held that in the forefront from that day on. So I feel blessed to have done business with one of your former leaders. She taught me one of the best lessons ever.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like Bianca, and she's very generous and not afraid to say the very directly what will help you and help you in your business. She's very giving that way, even if
Yeah.
it may, if you know, even if it may be a little jarring in the moment, for sure.
Yeah. She one thing I figured out pretty early on in our business, and I'm sure you see this too, a lot of like the quality of agents you meet throughout the deals you do is not overly high. I don't think a lot of
Yes.
them have the same training we have access to. And a big part of our business is not just coaching our clients, it's coaching the realtors that are on the other side of the transactions we're working on. And
Yes.
she did that. She taught me that lesson too. She was there deal one. I just told you how she coached me the first deal. Then deal two, she actually came. We met at KW Complete office, and she came. I
Nice.
think because she had zero faith that I would close my own client and get the house sold.
Yeah.
She came and closed it for me. It was incredible.
Yes, this is something that we do on our team too. You know, we're like, listen, guys, you know, scripts and dialogues just aren't for clients, but it's for helping other realtors get their clients over the hump as well. You know, so there's, if you're working with someone that hasn't been in a situation before, hasn't been in a buy and sell, they're nervous, you know, just straight up ask them, you know, like, and help their client understand the situation that they find themselves in, and hopefully work towards a win-win. But I completely agree. Credibility in the marketplace with your colleagues is huge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially in a multiple offer situation, especially if you're having something, you know, conditional on the sale of the home. Do people trust your listing process that you can actually sell houses? So yeah, that's an amazing lesson to learn on your first deal. That's great. I love that.
Yeah. I don't think that's something we've ever really talked about on the podcast.
I was gonna say,
Can
like,
we go
relationships are
over,
super important.
yeah,
Yes.
can we role play that for a second and go over a scenario?
Can I just say
Yes.
something really quickly? And this kind of relates back to the whole Hamilton area and how realtors are, I think, a lot nicer, I would say, than the Toronto area. I gotta say that first. But like, there's been so many deals. Like if I'm working with a deal, really quick example, Heather Atkinson from KW Complete. I don't know if you guys have worked with her in the past. She's amazing. And so I was doing a deal with her last year, and I was like, my fiance at the time, like my fiance was in the room and just kind of overhearing a little bit about the conversations. And he comes from more of a cutthroat world. And he's like, why don't you just like rip her apart and like, you know, negotiate harder or whatever? I'm like, Evan, like relationships are what makes this happen. And so I was like, nice. We had a great conversation. And at the end of it, we put the deal together. I don't think there's a need in this industry to like be super cutthroat. Like, let's actually collaborate.
I agree. Collaboration beats competition all the time.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Yeah.
I've noticed a couple things. I mainly have only worked on the listing side. And I notice like there are two types of people that show up to my listings. You have person number one that, yeah, I'm interested in the house. I'll submit an offer, but my clients don't really like it that much because the carpet's purple and the walls are pink. So they have other options if they don't get this one. And then you have other people that come in guns blazing. They blow my phone up 15 times because they want the house so bad. Mike, whatever it takes, I will get this done. I know you have 3 offers and 2 more coming in. Come back to me. Give me another chance. Give me another chance. I'll do everything in my power to get the motivated one to a place where they secure the house for their clients.
100%. Yes, 100%. And like the more, I mean, I know that you experience this on the listing side as well. Like, you know, when you're dealing with a motivated and qualified buyer with a skillful agent who has the capacity to get that client over the finish line. And that can be a value proposition in your listing presentations. It's like, look, we know how to screen buyers. You know, we know the questions to ask. You know, we have that dialogue with our listing prospects all the time. And I think that's a huge value and often underrated thing as well to bring to a listing presentation. Because as you guys know now, I mean, you're quite often in competition with 1, 2, 3 mega agents, you know, usually a single agent and a discount broker. So your value proposition has to be very clear, and you have to be able to demonstrate it to your prospects for sure.
Absolutely. Can we maybe flip back to when we first met? You were on a team like myself.
Yep.
Could you maybe give us the top 3 things you learned from that team that really set the foundation for where you are today?
You need to have an incredibly skillful director of operations. Administrative support is key. So leverage is absolutely key. Yeah. I see you guys writing. I'm naturally pausing. I used to teach music lessons, so when people write things down, I pause and stop talking. I'll just try to barrel through.
You got
But yeah, definitely administrative, like a highly skillful administrative support is is very, very important. If you are going to join a team, I learned that whatever we're doing needs to be scalable and repeatable as well. So, I think that's hugely important. And I also learned, like, just personally, that I couldn't do this alone. I need to be working with other people. Because the single agent life, when I was doing it, was like, I was kind of looking around at all, like, kind of producing single agents in our market, and it seemed that they were all kind of capped around that 40 to 50 deal a year rate as a single agent, and that's with like no administrative support. And they're very, very good at their jobs. But as my family was growing, as I was growing, I was like, I can't be on the phone at 11 o'clock at night negotiating a buyer deal while I have my son. That when I'm bouncing my son around, and I'm like, oh, who's doing daycare drop off tomorrow? I don't remember. It just seemed like that was like, if that's where you're going to cap after the business, then it wasn't going to work for me in the long term, because the money wouldn't be worth it at that point, because there would be no freedom.
Yeah, I think those are all amazing lessons. And like, we talk about that a lot with the team leaders that we bring on, is like, really, to summarize it, leverage is the most important thing. So do you have any specific systems for finding the right people in your organization or growing with the right people?
Yes. So, right now, I'm fortunate to be blessed with a director of operations who, is incredibly skilled. So she does a ton of work, and our digital leverage is very, very powerful too. So we use a lot of tech, which kind of alleviates the need for more hires. However, we do have, like, I would view our technology as leverage, not necessarily human leverage, but within that, it comes with coaching. We're part of a coaching company as well, which brings a lot of value to the table. And we have a full-time social media company managing all of our social media for us, which is, I was born in the 70s, so, that's not necessarily my strong suit. So I learned as soon, a year after I hired my director of operations, and was like, I'm outsourcing this other piece immediately. Because I do think that can just be kind of like a black hole time sink for agents, and it is important to have that, and so to leverage that out as quickly as possible.
And like, what specifically do you look for in the people that you do end up partnering with, whether it's administrative, agents? Maybe talk us through some of those systems as you've been building your team.
I look for evidence of exceptional ability. That's a direct quote from Elon Musk, who is someone that I admire. But there's a great interview of him on YouTube where someone's asking him the exact same questions, because I was struggling with hiring, and I'm sure that you've had this process where you're like, well, this person sounds like they're going to be a Navy SEAL of real estate, and all of a sudden, the proof isn't in the pudding. The actions don't match the words. So the first thing that I do is I look for evidence of exceptional ability in a prior, like anything prior, and that can be anything. That can be like, I'm the best, lawnmower. My lawn is immaculate. It can be like, I fold laundry like no one has ever seen before. But it's like literally anything that you can say that you're the best at, I'm interested in knowing. And I used to, for agents specifically, I used to have a much longer kind of interview process. And now what we've been doing is having agents actually just come and sit in on our script practice. Before we even start, like, we'll have an initial phone call, but I'm like, you know what, why don't you just come and meet the team? You see what we do, see how we operate. And we'll give them, our basic call script and say like, hey, why don't we just role play this? Let's see how it goes. Because you learn a lot in that moment. Like, is someone going to read this? Are they going to participate? Where are they at with their nerves? And when you walk into a room with 4 agents, kind of round robining calls on coaching, you learn a lot about someone very, very quickly.
Yeah, I think even
And
like looking at like how they react to you telling them like I'm putting you into a situation that you're scripting right now, and like how hesitant they are versus somebody that would be all in and ready to, rip through it and actually learn from it.
yes, and I find that like the best hires that I've made are the ones that are like, oh yeah, no problem, whatever. Like, not a big deal. Was that okay? And there's like just like no emotional reaction whatsoever. It's like, oh, this sounds cool. That sounds fun. Let's do that. And in terms of like other people that we try to partner with, whether it's for like tech, advertising, marketing, I generally always ask for a case study. Because I know in this business, as you guys know, especially when you're by yourself as a single agent, it's very easy to waste a lot of money, like a lot. And if people can't produce a case study and say, this looks like the greatest advertising campaign I've ever seen. What are some results from other real estate agents in my industry that this is produced? Because like agents are being sold to all the time. We have the best seller's guide Facebook marketing campaign. We have the best, retargeting programs. Like, okay, cool. So like, what are the results? What was the dollar for dollar results? If you spend X, how many leads can I expect? And the good companies will have that information like fingertips. And everybody else, it's just a little bit of smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. I'm a big believer. I love what you talked about when it comes to looking for a track record of success. If someone had a job as an engineer and you saw advancement in their previous career, they're probably going to do all right here.
Yeah.
If there's no track record, nothing has been achieved in their past, they're probably not going to do okay here. One challenge I've faced in the past, and I was this challenge for other people in my past, I was fantastic at interviewing. Behavioral based questions, I was a master. The product that they got after I passed through the interview and got hired was not what they were expecting at certain points in my life.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I've had people like that. They're fantastic during the interview process, but you and I and Anna, we can't make people productive. That's up to them. What we can do is create an environment that facilitates productivity and gives them the opportunity to choose whether or not they're going to be productive.
Yes.
I guess my question is, what do you do to create an environment of productivity, and what do you do to hold your agents accountable?
So I lead by example. So this was so we're very regimented with our schedule, and we kind of have like a typical producing team schedule where we lead generate in the mornings. We and reserve the afternoons for appointments. If you don't have an appointment, try to get face to face with someone that you haven't seen before, or continue your lead generation activities. And like, it's not rocket science. The saying, real estate is simple, not easy. You have to be willing to be bored, and you have to be willing to do the same thing over and over again to be successful. But when people see the team leader, like, we track everything on our dialer, and I'm always determined to be the top dialer for the month, which so I'm like, listen, none of you guys are beating me. I'm going to set more appointments. It's just the way it is. Because I'm at a point in the business where I'm still responsible for a fair amount of listing production at the moment. And that has been a huge way to create a culture of productivity as well. We call together as well, which is very important, because you can see it's like, well, how far are you getting on our basic script? How many times are you able to get to the point where you've created enough of a relationship with the person on the other end of the phone that you can ask for the appointment? Are you able to handle the first couple things that they say? And so, we structured in a way where someone will make 5 calls, another person will make 5 calls, another person will make 5 calls, and we go around in a circle. And that you learn a ton of things. You're practicing your scripting. You're working on how to use your software at the highest possible level, because you're keeping track of information, making sure people are set up on the correct auto plans, making sure that they're being followed up correctly. that they're getting their market reports, that they're getting their listing alerts. And we use a platform called Brivity, which is very, very powerful. So if there's any Brivity users listening, shout out. You guys know how awesome it is. But it basically makes it easy to do. And everything becomes trackable and repeatable. So when you say, hey, look, you made 200 calls, you said X number of appointments, we know that that's going to yield X number of commission. We divide that by the number of calls you made. Every time you pick up the phone, this is how much money you're making, regardless of what these folks are saying. So when people understand the math, then it becomes gamified. And,
we have to stop. We have to stop.
Sorry. Oh.
Like what you just said is genius. And I'm worried we're going to go over it too quickly and it's not going to sink in.
Oh, okay.
I know exactly where you got it from because I got it from the same source. Can you share the mindset around, we know exactly how much money we're going to make regardless of whether or not the prospect tells us to F off or tells us, I want to sell my house, come over and list it.
Like the mindset around that and how to maintain.
Yeah, it came from Marion Gillespie.
Yes.
That's the first thing she told me.
Yes. And so when you realize that, you're like, every time you pick up the phone, you're making money regardless on the results. And this is one of the toughest things for new agents to understand, to focus on the process, not the results, which is easy to say when you have 10 deals pending, at all times. And that's kind of our goal for our agents, to get them up to like 10 deals pending at all times. So you never have to worry. So you never have to get into that feast or famine mode where, because if you're worried about your next paycheck, it's hard to be good when you're talking to prospects, because you're concerned and they'll feel your, you'll feel your need to, it'll be more of a close. It'll be less of a win-win, less of a conversation. But when people know that, they're like, oh, I can just load up this dialer, make my calls, and, regardless of what happens, I can make money. Yes. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Each call
the
that you
math
work
behind that. I remember specifically the conversation I had with her. I wanted to make $170,000 my first 18 months. The first 6 months was a wash. Year one started 6 months and went to 18.
Cool.
So I wanted to make 170, and she told me what I had to do. She said, go speak to 140 people a day, 5 days a week, over a 48-week year. And I promise you'll make 170 grand. She just like, that's a ton of work. So it was almost a guarantee that I would make that, and I did make that. So 170 grand divided by the contacts, which is about 36,000. 170K divided by 36,000 contacts is $4.72 per call I made. Could be a yes, could be a no, could be, some of them are horrible, the things people said to me. They still haunt me. But $4.70 per call.
Right. Per call, man.
Like 15 years ago, as a summer job when I was a student, I would work at a call center during the summer and make $7 an hour because that was minimum wage. And now I'm making $4.70 per call, and I can make 30 calls an hour.
Load them up.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah. Yes, and I do think that like the secret sauce to be successful in this market, like I'm a big believer in the phone, like a huge believer, because you have to, like, because there's no visual. So you have to develop your speaking skills. People are going to have a picture of you in their mind. And, no real estate transaction in the history of humanity has happened without two people having a voice-to-voice conversation. At least none that I know of. I mean, maybe Chat GPT and like, the secret colony on Mars are doing real estate deals. I don't know, or something. But when you combine that with new school like video and social media, I really think that honing, the old school sales skills, your scripting, your phone calls, and combining that with new media is the way to build a massive, massive business.
Definitely. What do we say? There's millions in the mundane. I think, like everything that you guys said is so true. Like people just overlook the easiest and most simple things because they want to overcomplicate it. And we just keep telling our agents to like, keep it simple, like just do the activities. As boring or as much as you feel like it sucks, like you're going to make money as long as you do the activities.
You will. And then the team is there to support you if you need help. So if we're seeing that your dials are really high, but the results aren't, happening, it's all usually one of two things. It's either a scripting problem or a scripting problem. It's the answer is always the same. And then we can, best support our agents and try to figure out maybe it's tone, maybe it's delivery, maybe it's forgetting to ask a key question. Maybe it's moving too quickly, but sitting with your agents, this is something that I've been doing a lot, is, sitting with my agents on their calls and listening in. I never go to appointment alone. I always bring an agent with me, try to bring them in the car at the same time, say like, hey, like, what are you hoping to get out of this appointment? You do the appointment, then say, hey, what did you learn there? What did you learn?
Yeah.
And then you find who in your organization wants to put their hand up and take over certain parts of your business as well. So that's been very good at people get really excited. That's been very good for productivity as well.
No, I think that's so important too.
Sorry,
I'm going first. You've talked enough. Let me go.
Who's got a better point?
I have a really good point, and then
I can't wait to hear it. Pressure's on.
So like, it's so true. And like, one thing that we're really getting into the habit of is trying to correct certain language or dialogue things from like the day that the person starts in the business, or like at the time that they start working with us. Because I think back to when I was a swim instructor and learning or teaching kids swimming lessons. You're never supposed to let the kid swim more than 10 meters without correcting their stroke. Otherwise, they're going to continue to do the same thing over and over. They're never going to fix their stroke. And just like their swimming is not going to be up to par, or they're never going to develop the skills. I think it's the same thing. If you allow someone to continue to say the same scripts or not correct their dialogue, they're going to have a lot of hurdles to overcome when they're actually handling objections, when they're in a presentation with an actual buyer or seller. And as a team leader, I mean, that's probably the most important thing that you have to work on with them. I
would agree. Yeah, it's just kind of like, meat and potatoes, foundational structures, and like level one, like a brand new agent who comes on a team, level one, it's like, listen, just master the buyer appointment, master the buyer consultation, and then master the close. That's just like, when you have that, you're going to learn so much of the foundation of your business to have those conversations. You're going to start hearing the same things over and over again. You're going to be able to lay the path out for your client and give them the confidence to transact with you. That's ultimately what people are looking for, someone to like let them know that their ideas are okay, and then lay out the path for them in order to like get to that point where you can deliver the dream of home ownership to them.
That's so true.
What was your point, Mike? I'll let you talk now.
I forget at this point.
Sorry.
I think I totally agree with that, what you said, Anna.
Yeah.
Correct. And I remember being corrected at certain points in my career, and it's a game changer. I also think every realtor is created differently, but the one thing teams offer, it's a couple things. One is proximity. You are the average of 5 people you spend your time with. The quality of the agents in your organization is significantly higher than the average agent in our board. That's a fact. So when someone joins you, they get to hang out with quality agents that produce at a high level. And if you hang out with people that produce at a high level, it's just a matter of time before you produce at a high level.
Yes.
And then one thing I always think about is just full-blown immersion. You're in that world every single day. I almost, you can look at it like learning a language. I don't know a second language, but if I wanted to learn one, I'd have a couple options. Say it was French. Could go to Paris and live there. I'd be forced to learn it. I'd probably learn it pretty quickly. Option 2, I could buy Rosetta Stone. That would take me a while. I think option 2, the Rosetta Stone, is the path of the individual agent. Full-blown immersion is joining a team like yours. So I encourage anyone listening to reach out to Greg and talk to him about joining his team. And if you don't think he's a good fit for you, call me, because we're always looking.
Absolutely.
Or call me if you're in Vaughan.
There we go. And this is the thing that I love, collaboration versus competition. Not every team is going to be a good fit for everybody, which is why we encourage people to come and hang out with us for a little bit, because then you get to know right away, And I think, for agents out there who are struggling right now, and I know a lot of them are, the most important thing is like, how do I get myself into a vehicle that can generate the most amount of income in the least amount of time for me? what is that vehicle, and be very honest with yourself about what the struggles are. As someone who has been through those struggles before as an individual agent and been like, this is going to get ugly if I don't get my act together really soon. It's worth having the conversations with teams, and I do think that teams are over time will take more and more market share, and teams are evolving to a point where they're able to provide so much opportunity for people within their organizations to grow whatever kind of business they want. That's something that the best teams do. Say like, look, you don't just have to do this here. Like, we can provide you opportunities with leadership, opportunities for growth. What are your passions? How do we support you in figuring that out? Maybe you're passionate with like a side business. Okay, great. How do we get you to production level where you can get leverage for your side business now? Let's help you let's help you get there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point. When you look at what teams offer, what everyone's lacking is accountability. The individual agent doesn't have someone to tap you on the back and say, hey, you're not doing what you should be doing. And something you mentioned earlier, it's simple business. Like if you're not getting the results, it's for, say, one of three reasons. Number one, lack of activities. You're not talking to enough people. Number two, resources. Leverage is huge. You can hire a coach. You can hire someone to make calls for you. You can hire an assistant. And then number three is a lack of skill. Your conversion sucks.
Yeah.
It's that simple. Like, you literally only have to focus on those three things. And that's what a team provides you.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that. 100%. And like, just leveraging a proven playbook, like leverage the playbook that works, that we know that works. That isn't an idea that just appeared yesterday out of thin air. Follow the proven models that yield the results that you want. Definitely.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that we subscribe to, that are successful or following in the footsteps of success, like Gary Keller, like Tony Robbins. Like, they specifically talk about modeling. Like, why would you try and be creative from day one where somebody has already done what you want to do? There's no creative or brand new ideas in this industry. Somebody has probably already done what you want to do. So just follow in those footsteps.
Yeah,
I totally agree. I
always tell our guys, not only is plagiarism not frowned upon here, it's actually encouraged. Yeah.
Yeah.
R&D.
R&D. Let's go.
100%.
Every time.
I was at an event last week, and I heard John Maxwell speak. If you can ever listen to him live, it's incredible. And if you can't do that, his books are awesome. He's got an amazing podcast. And he was encouraging everyone in a leadership role to just rip off what he's saying. Take notes on everything I'm saying here. Bring it back to your team. Regurgitate it. You don't need to give me credit, because I write a book every single week, and I'm going to put out another one next week. So take it. I have new content on the way. And I think our brokerage does that, Keller Williams. I expose myself to a lot of training outside of KW. Yeah. KW training is just a mishmash of Tony Robbins and John Maxwell, everyone really.
Yeah.
Yes.
As leaders, we can do the same thing.
I completely agree. And, and it's also sort of our fiduciary duty to grow as leaders and become better leaders. And, the better that we become, the better everybody else around me becomes, so it's sort of like, as a broad overarching idea of just leadership, if you lead well, the results will be better.
100%.
And you can tell when you're not leading well, and that's like, okay, how do I step up my game? How do I become better? Who's leading in a way that I want to emulate? And yeah.
Normally that's the cap on all of our businesses, right? As leadership, it's that Maxwell law of the lid. Like, my leadership's at a 3, my business will be at a 2, and I'll never be able to get above a 3. The only way the business can go to a 4 and a 5 and a 6 is if our level of leadership increases and the lid increases.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's a big fear of mine, actually. Not growing fast enough, because we know what happens if we don't grow fast enough. The people in our organizations will leave us and go on their own, or join someone that is willing to grow fast enough and create a big enough world that provides them with opportunity.
Yeah.
So I wake up
Totally.
scared shitless about that every single morning.
Yeah. I hear that. I think, that is a priority for me as a team leader to make sure that there's always enough opportunity for people to have the same opportunities that I have as a team lead and rainmaker. I think that's incredibly important. As people move through their, real estate journey with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing I often think about too, it's someone on your team, if they're going to stay with you for a long time, it's very possible that they're staying with you because they want to recreate what you have. They want to
Yeah.
be you or be in your chair at some point in the future. Where a lot of teams go wrong, I think, is that they don't provide people with that opportunity. It's always the Greg show or the Mike Johnson or the Anna show. But sometimes you need to get out of the way and give people the opportunity to do what you're doing today.
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. It's awesome.
Well, Greg, we're coming on the last leg of the podcast, so we're going to ask you a question that we ask all of our guests. Are you ready?
Okay, I am ready.
Okay, so Greg, who do you know that we should have on the podcast?
That's a great question. I would probably talk to Austin Keitner out in Toronto, if you haven't already. I'm not sure if he's been on the podcast yet.
Not yet.
No, he's a pretty inspiring team lead as well. And if you haven't, I'm not sure if you know Jolene Snell out of Bellingham, Washington. She runs the Ben Kinney team there in place as well. If you haven't had her on, start asking now. She might be difficult to get, but she'd be great. She has a podcast about health and wellness and real estate. She'd be an excellent guest as well.
We've had Chris Suarez on the podcast. We haven't had Ben
Oh,
yet,
good.
but we'll definitely go to Jolene. Yeah,
for sure. That's fantastic. Yeah.
Awesome. Any final things that you want to plug or promote before we let you go today?
I just a final thought. I just wake up grateful every day that I'm in this business, get to chat with amazing people like you. And I'm just thankful for the license every day that is provides limitless opportunity, the opportunity to learn limitless income. And gratitude for the real estate license is important. Yeah.
I love that. That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys. It was an absolute pleasure talking with you both.
Every day I'm hustling, every day I'm hustling, every day I'm hustling, every day I'm